Dr. Thomas Griss is co-director of microbiology at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. He's been studying valley fever for over 15 years.
Yeah, it's something about the soil and the climate that it is in this area, and we're still not 100% sure where it exists in the environment, but certainly we know that it thrives here, and all you need to do is have lungs and breathe.
Valley fever is caused by a fungus called coccidioides that lives in our desert soil. It's too small to see, but can be easily inhaled when soil becomes airborne. And once inside the lungs, the fungus can cause infection. We put on our protective gowns and went inside one of the labs to look under the microscope to see the fungus up close. Okay, Dr. Griss, let's take a look at the fungus.
Yeah, so this is the fungus growing on a plate. It's a little bit misty inside there, but this is growing how we think it grows in the environment, which is in its filamentous state. When we grow it out in our lungs, it looks like this, which you can see are not filaments, they're like circles, and so we call this the spheral form. And so what happens is the spores will turn into these little yeast cells, and as they grow, they get bigger and they get spores inside them, and eventually they burst, and then each of those forms another one. And so this cycle is repeated in the lung. Once it gets back into the environment, then it goes back to the filamentous form. So it's kind of interesting that we see it two different ways.
And if this were to keep growing, would it eventually leave the lungs?
Well, fortunately it's not transmissible person to person. But if this were in a mouse, this is what we think happens in the environment, is that when the mouse dies, eventually this will grow, in that dead lung, and eventually it will find that it's kind of at the end of its life stage, and it will form spores, and that's what gets kicked up in the dust. And then if we breathe them in, it goes back into this form again. So you can see when we grow it to a high density, you can see kind of all the different forms from little ones up to the bigger ones that are bursting. But what we can see here is that in the background you can see some of these filaments. So sometimes it'll kind of grow both ways. But one of the things that we're interested in really understanding is what makes it go between these two phases, between what we call the spheral form and the mycelial form and the filamentous form. If we can stop it from transitioning, then we can maybe help stop disease. The difficult things with patients, like you might be meeting with Dr. Grill, where if it goes to their brain, it's very difficult to treat there. And oftentimes people with a brain infection with this have to be on antifungals for the rest of their life because it will stop it from growing, but it doesn't kill it.
Actually kill it.
You couldn't tell it by now, but I lost a lot of weight, probably 30 or 40 pounds in less than a month period.
6 years ago, 54-year-old Chris Sams was active and working as a district manager for a bicycle company.
So we were always riding our bikes. I think I was riding my bike outside 150 miles a week. So I was always outside, or I was watching the dust storms.
Today, Chris is one of Mayo's most severe cases of valley fever, and there is no cure.
I have problems walking, brain fog, and then I don't know if it's from the valley fever, but I've spent a number of trips. I've lost how many times I've been in the hospital. So it's a tough go at it.
Dr. Marie Grill is Chris's doctor.
Unfortunately, for less than 5% of the population, the infection can spread outside of the lung and can go elsewhere in the body. And when they're spread to the brain, that can cause meningitis and a number of complications related to that meningitis. It can be very severe.
Every 2 weeks, Chris comes in for an intensive treatment to target the fungus that has spread to his brain.
And so this is what we call intrathecal administration of a medication. And like Chris said, it means introducing the medication directly into the central nervous system.
Using a needle, antifungal drugs are injected directly into Chris's brain through a reservoir implanted underneath his skull. Chris's complex case of valley fever is one of many being treated at Mayo's new Valley Fever Clinic, where doctors and researchers are collaborating.
So most of this, in the first point of contact in an urgent care setting, people aren't even being tested. And part of the reason they're not tested is because the results take a couple days to come back.
Dr. Griss, along with researchers from ASU, are focused on improving testing. They've invented the world's first rapid blood test for valley fever.
So this is our prototype valley fever serologic test. So as you can see, it looks like the rapid test that we would see during COVID times. We just put a little drop of the specimen there, and then put 3 drops of buffer on.
Oh, this really is like the COVID test.
And then we just wait 10 minutes, but that's till the final result is complete. We'll see in just a few seconds the sample will start running across the membrane, and usually we can see a result starting to show up pretty early.
And in a medical setting, I mean, this would be great because a doctor would be able to prescribe medicine right away.
Right, right. Or tell the patient why they don't need the antibiotic that they think they need, because most people will recover without treatment. The blue line is our control line. That'll turn pink when we see that the fluid has passed over.
Oh.
The T is the test line, and you can see it starting to appear.
Oh.
And so this is the one that would tell you that you have antibodies against the fungus. It's kind of fun. You can see it like right before your eyes.
Are we seeing an increase in valley fever cases?
You know, over the past 10 years, we've definitely seen an increase on average. And part of that is more people moving to the valley. So we've got more people living in the endemic area. We're making some progress in having more people remember to test for it. So there's some of that as well. But it does seem that there's an increased incidence overall. And you know, we've certainly seen a lot of cases in the past few months.
But for Chris, valley fever has been life-altering. He credits his wife and daughter for supporting him and the doctors at Mayo for helping him get his life back.
Then you have to have a support team, which is my wife and my daughter. So my daughter was the big driver in getting the Omaya Reservoir because she did the research, and she went to Dr. Grill and Dr. Turkmani and talked to them about it. So they're both amazing.
It's been emotional for you.
Very emotional.
Do you have hope?
I do have hope. So I just don't know when everything will be done.
How do you feel about the team here at Mayo that's helping you?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, from Dr. Grill to Dr. Blair to Dr. Turkmani to all the nurses in AIC. I mean, they're just over the top amazing. They all know me by name.
Chris has been incredibly tenacious, incredibly strong, patient, and always kind through the whole process. Although I think many, having had such a difficult situation, wouldn't necessarily have.
I think awareness is the biggest thing, since Maricopa County is the #1 county for cases nationwide. Don't just sweep it under the rug. Speak about it, talk about it.
Well, you know, for something so common, I mean, 10 to 30%, that's 1 or 3 out of 10 pneumonias in this area is valley fever. And yet it takes us 3.5 weeks to figure it out. It just seems like we can do a lot better. And, you know, save those antibiotics, because that's now driving resistance. So there's a lot of health benefits. It's just something that clearly we ought to be able to do better, and I think we have the technology to do that now.